There are many different actions and muscles that are involved in throwing a football that people don't know about. It takes more than just a strong arm to throw a football far, accurately, and with proper velocity. If an athlete throws a football improperly, it can easily cause injury. When throwing a football, there are 4 phases. The first phase is the stance, second phase is the cocking stage, third is the acceleration, and fourth is the follow-through. My partners are going to walk you through each phase to show you how to throw a football properly.
Alright, right now I'm going to walk you through the first phase, and that's the stance. So my quarterback here, Corey's holding the ball. And to start on the stance phase, you want to have your feet shoulder width apart. You want to have a good steady base. And you're also going to want to be plantar flexed. Actually, let me change this way, Corey. You're going to be plantar flexed on the balls of your feet. And then the ankle is a hinge joint, and the muscles involved in plantar flexion are the gastrocnemius, the peroneus longus, the soleus, the plantaris, and the tibialis posterior. Being plantar flexed gives you the ability to see more, gives you a better range out in the field, and allows you to move quickly when the defender's coming. And another thing in being in the stance phase, you want to have the ball close to your chest, so that way you can, it's hard for a defender to get there. And having it close to your chest, your elbows are going to be flexed, and the elbows are flexed by the muscles, which are the biceps brachii. And then also, your wrists are going to be stationary, and they're going to be extended the whole time during the stance phase. And that right there is the stance phase, everyone. Alright, now we're going to go over phase 2, which is the cocking phase. In this phase, the quarterback is going to be locating his target, getting ready to cock his arm back. He's going to rotate his trunk and build up some energy in there. There's going to be slight flexion in the knees. There's going to be extension in the shoulder girdle, and it's going to contract externally. The wrist on the throwing arm is going to get ready to pronate, and the non-throwing arm is going to be fully extended. Alright, and then the muscles that internally rotate the leg and hip are as the gluteus medius, the tensor fascia latae, and slightly a semimembranosus and a semitendinosus. And then the knee flexion comes from the biceps femoris, the semimembranosus, and the semitendinosus. And then in this, also his trunk is going to be rotating, and this is done by your rectus abdominis, your internal obliques, and your serratus anterior. The muscles involved in rotating your shoulder externally are going to be the medial and posterior deltoids, the subscapularis, and the supraspinatus. And then there's also muscles in the back that are going to help out in this process, and that's going to be the trapezius, and that's going to elevate and upwardly rotate your scapula, the teres minor and the latissimus dorsi, horizontally abduct the throwing arm. The wrist on the throwing arm is going to start to pronate in this motion and bring the ball back. And the muscles that help this are the pronator teres and quadratus. The non-throwing arm is now going to come away from the body and abduct and fully extend, and that's going to be done by the triceps brachii. Alright, now we're into phase 3, which is the movement phase or acceleration phase. This phase typically lasts for about 3/10 to 5/10 of a second. A lot of energy is built up in this stage, and here the trunk begins to uncoil, the hips begin to abduct and rotate externally, the arm begins to abduct and shoulder rotates internally, but the wrist on the throwing arm begins to supinate, and the non-throwing arm begins to abduct and come closer to the body. So the first part, the hips, they begin to externally rotate, and this is caused when he takes a step. The gluteus maximus and gluteus medius are going to externally rotate the hips. The hips are also going to be adducted by the sartorius, the gracilis, the gluteus maximus, gluteus medius, and gluteus minimus. The internal rotation is caused by the pectoralis major, the anterior deltoids, and the subscapularis back here. And this is what's going to, when the ball's coming forward, that's that motion right there, the internal rotation. And then the arm is going to be horizontally adducted to the body by the pectoralis major, the anterior deltoids, and the crociobrachialis. So again, the arm is coming forward and getting closer to the body. And then the supination in the wrist is caused by the biceps brachii and the supinators in the forearm. And the supination is caused right before he releases the ball, the wrist is going to start to turn over. And that's the supination. And then if you turn here, the back muscles also play a role in this. When the non-throwing arm is being adducted to the body, that's going to be caused by the latissimus dorsi, and this is going to anteriorly rotate and adduct to the body. This is also done by the anterior deltoids, the subscapularis, the rhomboids, major and minor, and the corculobrachialis. All right, now we're on to the final phase, phase 4, the follow-through. In this, the arm is going to be fully adducted across the body. The wrist is going to go from extension into flexion. And all the muscles in this, and adducting the non-throwing arm to the body are going to be the same as the movement phase. So for starters, we have the wrist. And when it's coming through, it's going to be coming forward, going from extension all the way to flexion as he releases the ball. It's going to come to extension. And then the muscles that flex the wrist are the supinators, the flexor carpi ulnaris, the palmaris longus, the flexor carpi radialis. And then the last finger that touches the ball is the index finger. This is one of the most important parts of getting your distance and your spiral. The muscles that flex the index finger is the extensor indicus. After all this is done, he throws the ball, he releases, the wrist flex, he snaps the wrist. You want to point your thumb down and finish across at your hip. That right there is where you're going to get your spiral. So people are out there that can't seem to get the ball to spiral as tight as they want and throw ducks, as people call it. It's because they're not coming and they're not following through with that index finger and snapping the wrist at the end. You want to snap your thumb down and finish at your other hip. That's the most important part of the follow through, is snapping that wrist at the end. And right there, that's how you wrap up the follow through. All right, now I'm going to take you through the full motion of all the 4 phases. During these 4 phases, you really want to focus on flexing your core because that's where you get a lot of your power from, and pushing off the leg. So here's the 4 phases together: the stance, cocking, movement, and the follow through. So you're going to flex, you're going to cock, and throw. That's it right there, all in one motion.
There are many injuries that occur from improper techniques and overuse of the arm. The 2 major injuries are the rotator cuff tear, labrum tear. These injuries can be easily prevented by warming up your rotator cuff with adduction and abduction exercises. A solution to preventing these injuries are rehab, lighter repetitions in throwing, and analysis of throwing mechanics. And if all else fails, you may need surgery. Improper mechanics can lead to muscle and tendon swelling and irritation of the elbow. This can develop into tendinitis. The cure for this is rest, ice, and the changing in your mechanics of throwing.
Well, there you have it, people. That was a breakdown of the 4 phases involved with throwing the football. Remember these 4 steps and strengthen all the muscles that are involved to prevent any injury. Now go out there, put this knowledge to the test, and have a good time. Once again, my name is Jojo Galvez. I'm Matt Bradley.
I'm Corey Lewis. I'm Anthony Daniel, and that concludes our presentation. Thank you.